Now, he says we will publish a turnaround strategy approved by Cabinet for COCOBOD by end of June 2023. The strategy will include an immediate announcement of a joint ministerial supervision of COCOBOD by the Ministry of Finance and the Ministry of Agriculture. 2, a legally binding framework for setting a producer purchase price. Now, in this document, part of the problems identified by the COCOBOD is that sometimes also their operating cost and even the producer price that they set have led to the debt that they currently have or have incurred at COCOBOD. So you're looking at a legally binding framework for setting a producer price. I'll get back to that and I'll give you further details. That guarantees a revenue stream sufficient to recover the board's operational and financial cost. Listen to this carefully. They're going to set a producer purchasing price that guarantees a revenue stream which is sufficient to recover the board's operational and financial costs. 2, announcing cost rationalization measures, including a functional review of all departments and subsidiaries of the board to identify the scope for cost cutting. And finally, phasing out of quasi-fiscal spending of the board. And this will require announcement of termination of the road concession agreement with the Ministry of Roads and discontinuation or rationalization of fertilizer and input subsidy programs, including high-tech.
Okay, that's a bombshell. No more cocoa roads.
Well, from what I see in this document, this will require a termination of it. So that's it. The cocoa road, thing that we've had over the period will be discontinued.
No more cocoa roads and no more fertilizers.
No, or rationalization of it.
Well, read the fertilizer one again.
The fertilizer one says, and discontinuation or rationalization.
Okay, so it's an option.
It's an option.
Either to discontinue or to rationalize.
Or to rationalize.
Okay.
The issue is what constitutes the rationalization. This is something that is not broadly seen here. Now, we're told that the deadline for coming out with this program is June 2023. So if you read, every part, and this is page 69. Okay, so for those who are following the discussion, you can go to page 69, and that is paragraph 50 of our letter of intent, so that you follow the conversation. I don't want it to be, things that you probably may think we are just saying these things. So this is strictly from the document itself.
Wow.
So cocoa roads will be discontinued. I'm sure by end of June, by September, we will get to know that cocoa roads, the concept where COCOBOD makes funds available to the Ministry of Roads and Highways to construct these cocoa roads, are going to be discontinued.
You do recall that the concept of cocoa roads became controversial when the government came into power. It was suspended for a couple of years for review, for internal assessment, and for all the things that you want to do with such a program. The government finally said, okay, we have cleared it and we'll continue now because these roads are important. They are important to link certain parts of the country to the areas where we are not only transporting, but getting people to also do other things with the products and the produce that they put out from their markets. So that is why we got back on the cocoa roads wagon. You remember that? People actually suspected there was some corruption even in there in the first place, but we reviewed it and we said it's important, we need to continue it. But having to rationalize the space now, as we're being told, will demand that some of these are properly reviewed with the intent to either removing them completely or finding better ways of doing it. Now, you see, we know how we do our things in this country. Our best form of making sure that these things are done properly, if it's not going to yield electoral outcomes, is to remove them completely. Because now we are sick and see we are prior approvals. And we also have what they call conditionalities we meet for every subsequent review. We are seeking to be in the good books of the IMF. What will be the best option on our table today? Will we still continue with the cocoa roads, or we will look at the alternatives involved? Let's not forget, one of the major planks of the entire program of not one district, one factory. What's the name of the other one?
Planting for food.
Planting for food was the provision of these fertilizers. It was so important to it that we could remember the years that we could not supply and the rate that we wanted to supply. It had a massive effect on the people and their farming practices across the country. Of course, smuggling and other things came in, but there were discussions in this country on what should have been done better. Whether we spread these fertilizers everywhere and anywhere that we saw a minor or a major farmer, or we just needed to make sure that we have supplied enough. We counted numbers. Of course, the tons of fertilizer were spread out. When you go on a program that demands a lot more prudence, some of these things you may not be able to justify properly. So you either rationalize, and in this country, rationalize means cutting down in the way.
Yep.
The evidence has always been
Yeah.
that when we say rationalize, it's not supposed to be so. But when we say rationalize, we either mean we are going to cut back massively, or discontinue the process entirely. We've not forgotten the impact on the small scale farm, not small scale, peasant farmers anyway. The impact on it's a flagship program. I don't know if we still call it that, Planting for Food and Jobs.
Yeah.
It's a very big program that we're seeking to revolutionize the agri space with. What will be the impact when the biggest tool we give people, which is the fertilizer, I mean, not even input seeds, no, it was actually the fertilizer,
Yeah.
is going to be somehow rationalized?